Hello! I just wanted to start off this video by saying thank you guys so much for all the support on my video about culture shocks between the US and Korea. I was so shocked to see how many people have watched that video and commented, so I just wanted to say a short thank you to everyone who has watched and gave me some feedback upon it. So because of that video, I wanted to see if I could make a dating culture shock video on the differences between dating culture between the US and Korea. So that is the content I'll be talking about today. This might be a little off topic, but today is actually my last day at UT Austin. It's my last day of my exchange program. I feel as though 4 months has gone by so fast and I really miss my time here at UT Austin. I made so many good memories at UT Austin and I'm so grateful for my time during my exchange program. So thank you to everyone who has made my exchange program unforgettable. So since today is my last day at my dorm and at UT Austin, I have a lot of things to do, so I'm sorry if this video is a little disorganized. This video is very generalized, as I said in my last video, and also this video is not really based on my experiences, it's more based on my observations, and I asked both my American and Korean friends some things that they think are more unique to their culture about dating, so that is where most of my notes are coming from. So I hope you guys keep that in mind, and I'll go with the first thing I wrote down. Okay, the first thing I wrote down is how people meet each other. So I would say the most common way people meet in Korea is through blind dates that are set up through mutual friends. Two of the most common blind date types in Korea is called sogeting and meeting. So sogeting is blind dates where it's one-on-one, there's only two people on the date, and for meeting blind dates, it's a group of friends usually, or there's usually 3 guys and 3 girls who meet up each other in the purpose of finding a date or finding someone that they're compatible with during that blind dating environment. So I would say that is one of the most common ways people meet in Korea for dating purposes, and I think that is quite different from the US. Other ways people find their romantic partners is of course through mutual friends, through school, through work, through clubs at school. I would also say for nightlife, people go to bars and clubs, and I think this is more of a Korean thing, but there's also hunting bars, so people also find people there and find the people they're interested in if they want to go out more, or people who go out more. The biggest differences in the US, particularly compared to Korea, is the usage of dating apps. Dating apps is not really used in Korea. I think nowadays people do use it, but it's not common at all. But I would say in the US, it seems a lot more prevalent, and a lot of people meet their partners through dating apps is what I've observed and what I heard from other people's experiences. There's also a lot of similarities. People meet through mutual friends, through work, through school, through clubs, also public places. I think in America, people tend to ask people out more, and of course through bars and clubs as well for people who go out a lot. Okay, the second thing I wrote down is the way people show interest. So through my observation, I would say that in Korea, people tend to be more subtle about showing interest, more through their texting or just small little actions. And in the US, I would say people are more direct. They say, I like you more, but I think this is really dependent on the person and someone's personality, so it's a little hard to generalize about this. So the third thing I wrote down is about first dates. So I would say in Korea, I think that the first dates are a lot more planned out, a lot more effort, a lot more elaborate, I would say, or a whole day thing. And the only reason I say this is because a lot of people meet their mutual friends and blind dates, it's already expected that after the blind dates, you know that you have a potential to date this person. So that's why there's a heavy emphasis on the first date, and it feels more official because you met through a dating purpose, I would say. But in the US, I tend to see a lot more friends to lovers relationships or people who already knew each other from work or school. That's the only reason why I would say in Korea, first date seems to be more of a big thing. But I guess this also goes for people who met through dating apps. You already know that the first time you meet each other, it's already for the purpose of dating each other. But even through dating apps, it doesn't seem as if the first dates are that formal, or it seems more casual. And also I think that in general people in Korea seem to like to plan things more or make dating more of an official thing. It seems as though first dates in America seem more casual. You go for a coffee date or to a cafe or just a casual restaurant. So it seems like that's the vibe. Even when you meet someone through a dating app, you know that the first time you meet each other, it's for the intention of dating. So even through that, it seems a little more casual, just get to know each other type of deal. So I would say it is a little less defined, but of course, this could vary upon each person as well. So the third thing I wrote down is texting differences. I think in Korea, people like to text a lot more than in the US. Frequent communication is very important, especially through texting. And it seems like in the US, slower replies are more common and accepted. So I would say that is kind of the differences, but again, this is just a generalization. I'm not saying every Korean or every American does this. You know, I am Korean, but I'm not much of a texter. So number 4, I wrote down about the talking stage. So in Korea, I think that people tend to become more exclusive a lot faster than the US. Also, the talking phase or the pre-dating phase in Korea is called seom. And during the seom phase, there's this unwritten rule that after the third date or the third time you officially meet each other, you're expected to become exclusive or become a couple after the third date. So I would say that people in Korea tend to be more exclusive a lot faster than the US. And what I noticed in the US is it seems as though the talking phase is a lot longer than Korea. I would say in Korea, if you meet someone for around a month is a good time, or even less than that is usually the time where you start to make things more official. But from my observation and what I heard from people in the US, it seems like the talking phase could go on for a lot longer. A lot of relationships seem more ambiguous. And it seems as though in the US, there is a prevalence of situationships. I personally had the wrong definition of what a situationship was. I thought that a situationship was just a pre-dating phase or just a long talking phase before you date someone, but I was wrong about that. It seems as though situationships has become a big thing in the US. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in Korea, but it's a lot less common, and it seems as though the talking phase in the US seems more ambiguous than in Korea. And in short, I would say generally the talking phase in Korea or the seom phase is a lot shorter compared to the US. So number 5 is the couple culture in general. In Korea, it's very common to have a lot of couple items, especially when you're in a long-term relationship, whether it's matching outfits, maybe phone cases like keyrings, or even like promise rings is a thing that a lot of couples get in Korea. And another thing is a lot of Koreans value 100 days anniversaries. So people count like 100 days, 200 days, 300 days. And I would say that's a pretty big anniversary for couples in Korea. I think in the US, there's a lot less visible couple identity, I would say, compared to Korea. Also, in Korea, there's just a lot more couples, so I think that's why the couple culture is a lot stronger. And I would say in the US, there's a lot of variety or different types of relationships compared to Korea. So number 6 is the confession culture. I think there is a big difference in this aspect. So in Korea, it's expected that there is a stage of confession or 고백, and that's when you officially become a couple. Like one person confesses their feelings to another person through a formal manner. And that's very common with a lot of Korean couples. In the US, relationships are more gradually developed and more slow. And there are some people who do grand confessions. From what I noticed, recently one of my friends got confessed to, and the proposal, I don't know, the confession was quite grand. So it seems like people in the US do that as well, but it's a lot less strict, or it's not really expected so much compared to Korea to have a official confession phase, and it seems like it can be casual a lot of the times too. Okay, number 7 I would say is definitely the dating apps. So in the US, using dating apps and meeting people through dating apps seems to be very common, especially through apps like Tinder and Bumble, but in Korea it's not that common at all. Like meeting people through blind dates or your social circle is a lot more common in Korea. And people do use dating apps in Korea, but I would say it's definitely used more for hookups or short-term relationships. Okay, number 8 is public display of affection, or PDA. PDA in Korea seems to be more reserved compared to the US generally, but also it's more common to see PDA or public forms of affection in Korea, I would say, just because of the amount of couples in Korea. But I think the most you would see is just people holding hands. That's very common in Korea. It might just be UT Austin, but I was quite surprised to see that there wasn't a lot of couples, and maybe this is a little bit of a culture shock, but in Korea, I'm so used to seeing couples every street or every road that I go into, so not seeing that many couples on campus is quite shocking to me in a sense. So actually in my head, I had a small stereotype that I thought people would be a lot more open or affectionate or show PDA a lot more in the US, but I would say that it's more accepted to do that in the US or to be more intimate with people, but I think it's a lot less apparent, especially in public compared to Korea. But in general, I would say PDA is a lot more accepted in the US compared to Korea and what people can do. And I'm sure many of you guys have seen a lot of Korean dating shows compared to American dating shows and seen the drastic differences between the public affection on both shows. You know, in Korea, kissing is really not a thing, and you would never see that on a dating show. Even on Korean dating shows, like holding hands with another person is a big deal, so you can see the differences between that through dating shows. Number 9, I would talk about group dating or meeting through friends. In Korea, it's more common, I would say, to meet a group of friends, or when you first go into university, usually you're put into your major groups. So a lot of people start dating through that, or similar interests or similar clubs, and it's more common to meet as a big group and then slowly go on one-on-one dates with someone. And I would say in the US it's barely the same dynamic, but I think people go on one-on-one dates a lot earlier. So the last point I wanted to talk about is the expectations in relationships. In Korea, I think the roles of people in relationships, it's a lot more defined and not strict. I don't think strict is the right word. Yeah, I would say a lot more defined. Like, for example, planning and anniversaries are a really big thing in Korean culture. And in the US, I see more individual variation between couples, and some people like to have more of a casual relationship, while some people like to plan or put a lot of emphasis on their relationships. So yeah, I would say that's the general differences. Okay, that's everything I wrote down for this video. I know that there is a lot more things that I forgot to talk about or say, or maybe there's a lot of things you guys don't agree with, and that is completely okay. This is all just my opinion and based upon my observations, and I think a lot of the things I said is very general, so I hope you guys keep that in mind. Let me know in the comments what you guys think are the biggest differences between Korea and American culture. And yeah, sadly today is the last day at UT Austin and the end of my study abroad exchange program, which makes me quite sad but also hopeful for what comes for the future. So if you guys are interested in what I'm going to do back in Korea, I will try to post more content on this YouTube channel. Also, if you guys have any questions about my study abroad program or how I felt about coming to the US or any questions about that or myself, I'm planning to do a Q&A video on that, so hopefully I can film that someday. So if you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Actually, on my other channel, I did make a general Q&A question video on my other channel, so if you guys are interested, you guys can watch it here. I'll link the video here. But I was also interested in making a Q&A video just based upon my study abroad experience. So if you guys have any questions about that, then I'll try to make a video on that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys all have a lovely day. Bye!